So, as you guys know, I recently got hacked by whatever. My email got hacked, my YouTube got hacked, and coincidentally, 2 weeks prior, I had a video call with Lester Nichols here, and you know, we had originally talked about doing some type of podcast or um, interview or something to have my channel, and I wasn't quite sure when I was going to start doing that. But since I literally just got hacked, here's Lester, and he is a specialist.
I'm a cybersecurity architect.
There you
Just
go,
put it that way.
cybersecurity architect, and I have him here with me, not live, but on my channel here, and we're going to talk about this, and he's going to go into more details of obviously how to protect yourself, and maybe what happened to me,
Yeah.
if you're familiar with that. So yeah, Lester, you go ahead and just.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, my name is Lester Nichols. I've been in IT for over 25 years now. Most of that in cybersecurity. I have a master's degree in information assurance, which was cybersecurity before cybersecurity was a thing. And prior to that, I was actually working to become a physician. So it's an interesting transition. But what you've experienced is not that uncommon, and is one thing that ends up happening to people because social engineering and other data breaches basically expose your information and your communication to threat actors, and they use that to cause nefarious and or other dealings that create problems for you and benefit them.
Right, and you actually forgot to mention that you're kind of a videographer, tube douche, not tube douche, but
Well, I'm trying to be a tube douche. I'm trying to be a tube douche, but I've been getting more into videography and video editing and audio.
As you can see from his footage here, you got good lighting, you got enough good blurred out the D-bag bokeh in the back with the.
Yeah.
With the
if I've got to have the professional moniker, I've got to have the professional setup, right?
Yeah.
And something else I didn't mention is I'm an author as well, and my book, The Cybersecurity Architect's Handbook, is something that talks about the cybersecurity and how to be a cybersecurity architect. So
links in the description below. This is not a sponsored deal or anything.
Yeah,
literally he just reached out to me just to have a chit chat, basically.
Yeah, one, because I appreciate your videos. They make me laugh, and when I share them with my friends, when we talk back and forth, it gets them chuckling too. So I just had to say I appreciate your videos, and that's kind of what started all of this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But before we get into it, just in case anyone had missed my video about how I got hacked, basically, this brand reached out to me for a collaboration deal. It was a brand that I was familiar with. Previously, I did not go through with the actual brand that reached out to me because of monetary issues, and of course, my thoughts about the brand in general. And then, of course, a year or two later, they reached out to me again, but this time it wasn't the brand; it was some fake scammer brand. But I wasn't doing my due diligence, and I went ahead and clicked on this link that the brand provided for me to sign a contract for, to get paid for a sponsored ad. And then I don't know if the download was enough to do it, or the fact that I had to install. It was basically a fake Adobe sign link. The install that did it, or the fact that there's a button I had to press to submit also on this little application that did it. But basically, it allowed the hacker to gain login to my email account. my email account is also obviously connected to my YouTube account. And then from there, within about 2 minutes, they had logged into my email, changed all of my passwords, changed all of my two-factor authentications, changed everything. And then I couldn't get back into it. And basically, whatever they did, it allowed them to bypass my like two-factor authentication. I didn't get any type of notification. They just went right into my account, changed everything, and I couldn't get back into it. And luckily, there's some tips and tricks that I was able to do to get my account recovered. It's a really weird, random way YouTubers, content creators get their accounts back from Google. But yeah, so with that being said, I'll let Lester here is probably more familiar with exactly what went down and details of how to prevent it or what have you.
Yeah. So what happened to you is what's called a session hijack. So within the browser, there is a file called a cookie. And websites, web applications, and so on save those cookies in a particular directory and in memory. And when you're using the browser and using, let's say, Gmail through the browser, those cookies are available. Applications and or websites can actually view cookies, and that's how you can be on one website looking for something and go to another website and all of a sudden see an ad for that same thing that you're looking for, is because they're actually actively looking at your session history and your cookie information. The cookie information will hold maybe the information about the website that you were at before you came to the particular website, let's say Gmail, and we'll have what are called session tokens. Those session tokens are essentially unique keys for authentication to validate you against the application or Gmail in this case, and or your account for Google, which affected your YouTube account. And what they did is when you clicked that link to download, it ran the application basically in the background. And from there, it sent your session, your cookie, and all of your information to a server, which then they probably have an automated process that then reads that information and looks for key session and or cookie types to then hijack your account. I mean, it's relatively simple and straightforward. Back in the day, there was actually, it was directories that were easy to get to that you could find on your computer to actually see those files. But now browsers have kind of hidden them in the background, and you normally don't necessarily know or see those any longer. But they are there, they are accessible, and those are things that you want to try to essentially avoid. And there's multiple ways and multiple layers of dealing with that type of issue to try to prevent it from happening. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but it does mean that you can prevent and or mitigate that from happening in the future.
Now, before we get into, the prevention and all that, my question for you, for me, is that once I downloaded it and, installed it, whatever, within probably 2-3 minutes, that's when I realized that it was a scam. So the application was on my computer, so I uninstalled it, and then the actual exe file, the executable, whatever, was still in my downloads folder, and I deleted it. I put it through the recycle bin. And then I actually restarted my computer. So, but the only thing that I know that they got into was my main Gmail account that is connected to my YouTube, because obviously that's was their target, considering
Yeah.
they found me because of YouTube. So they're trying to get my YouTube channel.
Yep.
My computer, obviously during that time was my Gmail and stuff is always connected to like my other Gmail accounts. Like my second most important one, or actually it might be evenly important, is like my business email account was also logged in. Um, Obviously I wasn't in bank accounts or anything like that, but my Gmail stuff, is all connected. They're all logged in, but it seemed like they only got into one of them. And, I was able to go in my other email accounts and just change the passwords and everything. Even though during that session I know for a fact that those accounts were logged into.
Right.
My question is, like, after I did all of that, was I safe after that, or was there, it was still active in my computer somehow, after I deleted all that. And, I'm really paranoid. So what I ended up doing was I did like malware, I found some stuff, some like Trojan hijacker stuff that was in my computer. I removed all of that. I backed up some of my files that I needed, and I actually did a whole reset of my computer. And even after that, I still felt kind of sketchy. So I ended up just getting rid of that computer. So right now I'm actually using a new computer I just picked up yesterday. So, yeah. So it was kind of a long question, but I'm trying to see, like, let's say I did not sell the computer off. Would I have been safe after I did all of that? Like, what was like the risk after, the initial takeover of my email, and then I had deleted and changed passwords and stuff.
You'll hear this a lot from security guys, but it depends. And it depends on the type of malware and code that was used. And the reason I say that is it could have been very specific, and it could have been what's called memory resident or a fileless malware, meaning that it just loads into memory. And the moment you rebooted, you would have been fine. Assuming it didn't make changes to your registry, assuming that you're using Windows, and or create scheduled tasks to re-download periodically. So there are things that you can look for, especially if you're running Windows, that would evaluate whether or not this is something that it was solved. The other big concern that may not have made your system safe even after reinstalling and re-imaging your system would be if it was a piece of malware that affects the actual firmware and or other components within your system. So more than likely not, because then they would have had specific information about your computer. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times what will happen is that spear phishing attack, in your case, because they targeted you specifically, what they will do is they will have you download something that will impact your system in one way, but at the same time, it will basically download friends to do other things later on, or stay on your system for them to use at a later point in time. So
download friends.
Yeah, meaning other pieces of malware.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So most pieces of malware don't like to be by themselves for very long. Right. They usually pull down other pieces of code or transition to other systems so that there's more of them. And so doing what you did is not necessarily a bad thing. It may have not, you may not have needed to go to that extreme, but at the same time, without knowing what the specific malware was and looking at the code, it's hard to guess at this point.
Yeah. Because what was interesting was, the email that is connected to my YouTube account, the one I have to log into, is different than the one that I had for people to email me.
Right.
So like my email address of my YouTube channel is kind of like hidden, it's kind of unknown. So really, they emailed my like business email, and the link was, you know, on my business email. That's why I always had access. I still had access to like the actual email to send to Google to show them.
Right.
So like I was really worried about that account also, but they didn't get in it. You know, it didn't seem like anything happened to it. But you know, they definitely specifically, I think, just try to go to like my YouTube account for the login. And they ended, you know, obviously they ended up getting access to that. And, you know, another thing I want to mention is the weirdest thing was, you know, Google has like family, they have like these family mode or whatever in your Google accounts. I don't know how you're familiar with this, but like, you know, when you have like a Google account and that's a main
Right.
account,
You can share drive space
I can
and
share all
storage.
that. Yeah. So
Yep.
I have like Google One and I was sharing it. I was sharing it to a bunch of random people. Like I looked in there and I was like, who are these? What are these email addresses? Like, who are these people? And you know, some quick searches, some of them, I'm not gonna mention it obviously, but some of them are like other content creators, it looks like, based on like the names. So I don't know if it was just like a group of other ones they also got, and it's just kind of like in the same group of accounts or something, you know, and it ended up just being like a family group of emails. And you know, seemed like they were all content creators also, like
Right.
YouTube.
Well, it looks like from what happened to other people, because like this happened to Linus Tech Tips and others, where they will
mine didn't get nearly as far as them. Like
right.
I got mine back in 12 hours, but they had their whole account like completely cleared out and everything.
Right. And what they'll do is they'll try to basically masquerade as you, pointing back to your actual account until that gets resolved. And so they're using you to promote their basically hijack and or malware or crypto schemes as part of that process. So again, I think your reaction and you taking action as soon as you did is definitely a good thing. I also think that YouTube and Google has been more sympathetic to responding to content creators that have been around a while as well when this stuff happens, knowing that this is becoming a higher issue and more prominent within the environment.
Yeah. So like I was watching, you know, all the YouTube videos that a lot of some of them recently had the same problem as me. None of them really covered like what they did with their computer afterwards. But it's not like, you know, okay, you got your account back, and then what are you going to do? Just log right back in your computer like nothing happened? Right. So what are the things that you recommend doing immediately after something like this? And then obviously prevention strategies.
Yep. So the first thing I would do, once you get everything recovered and you've got your account or your email back and everything, one, change your password. And your password should be greater than 20 characters, alphanumeric, special character, upper and lower case. And you should use two-factor authentication. The other thing that you should do is always, when you're done with looking at anything in your browser, you should always log out. By forcing the log out, you're able to basically reset that cookie so that in the event that they did come back or you had something there, they can't re-steal the session because it's not there anymore. And that's assuming certain things on the web app side, that they're not using session keys that could be guessed, meaning that they're incremental or that they're random in nature. So those are the first two things that you should do right off the bat.
Yeah, but I think in my case it didn't matter because
they had already taken it.
I'm in the email account, so I you know, when it happens, you know, that's where I got the
notification from. Yeah.
What's this other question I had? I mean, I think, well, anyways, I quickly have to mention, I didn't really go into detail with how I got it back really, but it's a really backwards way of doing it. You have to go into X or Twitter and then at mention YouTube creators and say, hey, my channel got hacked. I need help. And that's when you get a DM, and then you have to wait for, sometimes it could be 10 minutes, sometimes it could be like a couple hours for them to get back. And eventually someone will send you like this form, telling you to use like a different email and, put in like all of like this information, like some pretty tough information if you're not like at least somewhat uh savvy with internet or computers. You have to find your actual YouTube URL, not
Right.
like mine, which is like YouTube at NBoo Films. It's like YouTube something and like a bunch of other random stuff.
Yep. It's
And then you have to
the
share that with them. You have to share like your AdSense code number for like Google AdSense or whatever. That number, like there's a bunch of stuff that you have to be able to share with them in this questionnaire, and then you get back. But that's on like the YouTube point of view. But they're able to do this and take like, take over your bank account if that session is open.
right.
And they could probably Zelle themselves like all your money probably. And then well, probably not all your money, but like however much they can for that one transaction. Or if you're not I don't know who, like how they would specifically try to target like some random person who's not a YouTuber.
No, they're gonna. So on stuff like that, threat actors or hackers, they go over, if it's not a spearfish like with you and like with LTT, they're going for low hanging fruit. So the low hanging fruit is where you get into your home networking, your home security. You can't trust your ISP. They're not there to protect you and your connection. They're, in fact, most of what they're doing is they're using you as a revenue source to sell your search history and information to other providers. So they're not really there to try to be a defense from bad guys. But for low-hanging fruit, people's computers, I don't know if you saw in the news the last month, Asus routers have been compromised and are now part of a large botnet. And you have to update the firmware in order for you to, get rid of the botnet component in the Asus router. So people who have those big gaming routers and different things, those are compromised. There's a lot of different compromises that they will use to gain a foothold and then use you as a bouncing off point or a jump point to get at other people. Even to the point of using your IP address as the IP address to cause some sort of hacking event, and then you get linked to that hacking event.
Wow. Yeah, it's wild as like they start getting more intricate. And I mentioned in my video like before, these scam emails, they used to be really obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Like bad language, or whatever. So one of the morning when I got my account back, as soon as I removed their email, they still had one email in like my, as like a two-factor email, like authentication or whatever. I removed that from my account, and like literally like a minute after I removed it, someone tried to log in. Like I think they probably got like a ping like, oh, your email was removed, and then the login was like from Germany or something. So with that in mind, before, when I used to get these scam emails, it'll be like really poorly written, like it wasn't really good English and everything. But now, like, they could just do a quick chat GPT or write me an email that is, related to whatever brand, and then go from there. And, it look really legit. And as I mentioned, I didn't check the email address, and I always do usually, but for some reason this time I just didn't. And then it's probably because it was familiar and I was busy. But always got to check email addresses before you click on that stuff. And like all, what I found was like all of these safeguards, it helps from not getting your password stolen. It helps from, makes it harder for these hackers to get your stuff. But if you download something and they get into your session, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like that's pretty much, you're just unlocking the door to your house for
Yep.
them.
And that's the thing is that while you think you're protected because you've got an ISP, you're a business, you're not a business per se, and you're at home and you're doing something on the personal computer and using the web, and you look at the website and it's got the little padlock on there. That padlock just means that you're using a valid certificate, which means that you're using something that is known and is trusted from a browser perspective, but it has nothing to do with them getting in and you installing their software, which now means that they basically have the run of the system if you don't have things in place.
Yeah, like I'm just glad that this happened to me in a case where nothing crazy really happened.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a lot worse. Like literally my account didn't really change. It was just, I couldn't get into it for like 12 hours and maybe they didn't have time, because, like I said, some of these other guys, their whole account will be taken down. And then like a bunch of crypto stuff will be put onto their site, or like,
right.
In other cases, I've heard they try to sell your YouTube account to somebody else or something.
Or they ransom it for, that they try to sell you your account back or your site back for X amount of dollars or Bitcoin.
Yeah. And, one of the mistakes that I have made, now look, because I wasn't really sure like if I was going to have a YouTube channel or if it was going to get big, whatever. So when I created the channel, I just like, whatever. Right. But this particular email address, it's my main Google account, so like I said, it has Google One. I'm sharing it with like my daughter, my kids, my wife. My photos are backed up to it. All of my Google apps and stuff is connected to it. So like anything and everything Google related is connected to the account. That includes like my notes that I make, whatever. And sometimes it could have sensitive information in that. The whole 9 yards.
Right.
So, obviously another thing I would recommend people is just like try to separate things, like what I should have done was just had like this email address just for YouTube, this one random email address that's just for YouTube, so that at least, hey, if my YouTube gets hacked, it's just a random email address as well, not something that is really important and connected, like my house security system, my Nest, my Google Nest and all that doorbell is connected to this account, it was like my Nest thermostat. God.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is once they get in, IoT devices, your fridge, your washing machine, or anything else that's hooking up to your Wi-Fi now becomes a potential attack vector or monitoring mechanism,
which is wild. But obviously now, with me logging out, changing my passwords and everything, it's not, they can't. But like this is just like really, I would say like not that crazy of a threat. It's not like they took over your I know there's some that like take over your computer and all that. Like I guess my question would be these days, with everything that and nowadays they have all different kinds of like safeguards, like you said, even Google has like those recovery codes or whatever that you're supposed to print out and just like put it in like a drawer, not like saved anywhere digitally.
Right.
What are I guess like in terms of like threat level and people, how important it is for people to make sure they learn about all these things and be like aware of it. So then, they do everything they can to prevent it, and just like see like the common um, signs of, something that is shady. Obviously
Yep.
don't download random stuff. Yep.
Yeah. So there are some basic things that you can do with regards to improving your home security from a network perspective that will help you in your browsing security. The one thing that you need to do is typically consider utilizing something like a Pi-hole or utilizing AdGuard, which are free services. You can set up a Pi-hole on a Raspberry Pi or on a virtual machine, or use AdGuard, which is a service where you can then start filtering out ads and other known malicious sites from your DNS. So DNS is domain name service, and every time you connect to a browser, it has to associate the IP address with that URL name. And so your computer will make a request out to your DNS server to say, hey, where is acme.com? And it will return back an IP address. And then your computer will then go to that IP address based off of that. So it's like an address book. And what AdGuard or Pi-hole does is it actually blocks or associates bad URLs or IPs with what's called a sinkhole, meaning it doesn't allow you to go there, and you'll basically get an error. That way, it prevents you from going to things that you're not intending to go to. Like if you were to go to a news site or like MSN.com or Microsoft.com, if you were to actually look at the traffic, you're probably connecting to anywhere from 50 to over 100 different websites and URLs that have nothing to do with Microsoft or that news site, because they're all the different ads and images that are coming from all over the place. And that's where threat actors will like to basically inject their malware, because they will compromise an ad roll or an image or different things, and you'll get infected without even knowing it. So by doing that, that can also help with your email, because then if you click on that link, it's got to download from somewhere. More than likely, you would be able to block it from there. That's something that's really easy to do and doesn't cost a lot of money, because there's free versions available. The other thing that you can do is actually set up a separate firewall and create an air gap between your service provider and your home network. And by configuring a separate firewall, you can have other filters in there, including installing AV, so that the traffic and everything that comes through gets scanned, and any files that you download get scanned automatically for known malware.
Okay. So like, let's say if I had that, I would still get the email.
You would still get the email, yes.
And then when I open it,
nothing would happen.
They had, it was, the link was Adobe, so it went to some type of Adobe link, but I think that was just where they're like storing the file. I would not be able to download it.
So with that, it depends. If it's going out to a URL and it was associated with, let's say, and what looked like to be an Adobe URL, or it was redirecting somewhere that was known malicious, no, you wouldn't be able to download it. If it was an attachment, meaning that it was actually in the email, you would be able to open it. But if it actually pulled up a link or activated a link to download malware, then it wouldn't have done anything. Now, if the malware was embedded within the file and the file was part of the email, then at that point, you would still be affected. But again, the idea here is to create multiple layers so that think of it like a filter and a sieve.
Yeah.
You've got dirty water. The more filters you have
Right.
filtering out, eventually you get the clean water. And it all comes back to how secure do you want your browsing and your internet activity to be?
Yeah. Because I heard, some of these malwares these days, they're able to like completely dodge your virus scan, Windows Defender or whatever. Like you scan it and they won't even find it because for some reason, if the file is like really big, your virus scan or your malware scanner, just because it's so big, it just said, "Oh, screw it," it just like dodges it or something.
Well, they have what are called, so your antivirus uses two methods to identify known malware. And antivirus or anti-malware only knows about known things. So the two approaches are bit pattern sequence or text sequence that it can read, or a hash and some sort of signature that gets associated with it. Between those items, that's the only way it can identify it. And malware providers will use different methods to obfuscate or change the hash or the bit pattern so that it doesn't match that signature that the malware is using or that the virus scanner is using. So that's how they bypass it. And they can use encryption, they can use zip files and other things. And then by the time you activate it, then it becomes something that if you have anti-malware running, it might be able to catch and it might not. So there are different mechanisms to do that. But Windows is kind of the big target because that's where 80%, 90% of the computer users are at. And it's a big target to go after.
Well, yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised considering how many people use Mac these days. But apparently, like, Mac isn't safe either because in my case, they said you need to open it and you cannot use your phone to open this. You can only use your Windows or Mac. And apparently that's one of the telltale signs of a scam email. I never heard of it before until now. But, it's like you said, it's really good to have all those layers of filters to make it just overall more difficult. But also, you just shouldn't be downloading. Don't download random stuff.
Yeah, you need to be aware of where email is coming from. Another thing that threat actors will use or hackers will use is they will use Cyrillic alphabet characters in the URL or the email, and it will read, if you're just glancing at it, will read exactly like gmail.com, but the A will be a different type of A, and the browser will understand it being different, but at first glance, it will read the same. And so just because it says one thing versus something else doesn't necessarily mean it's real. There's a lot of different techniques that they can use to subtly hide that they're coming from a different domain or impersonating an email or a domain itself.
Yeah. That's definitely like, not just that too, but I saw like they also make their email something random. Like I've seen, I don't know, like PayPal.service, whatever. They just throw the brand name in there or something.
Right. And you're looking at it at a glance. And if you see that, it. Yeah, it's like when you're looking at something and sometimes you have to take a second glance because you only saw a portion of it. That's essentially what they're doing. They're hoping that you're not paying attention, that you're not being aware and actively monitoring what you're doing.
It's crazy. It is wild. And, it seems like they're getting better, not just that, but like, as you know, right now I'm like switching to Lumix or whatever. And so I've been trying to sell a lot of Sony gear, and I sell it on Marketplace, like Facebook Marketplace, because eBay, once you factor in all the fees, like 13% or something like that. But a lot of these people, they try to buy stuff and then they say, hey, I just sent you the money or something.
Yep.
And it's like, they either just send me like a screenshot of their phone that says like sent payment, or I actually get an email and it looks legit, that it's from PayPal or whatever. And they Photoshop like this whole PayPal like thing.
Right. Well, that
and
happened
I always catch it because I always log into my account to see.
Right.
Obviously, if it's not
that happened to camera conspiracies. He was selling one of his cameras, and he actually did a video about it where some guy was trying to hustle him and made it look like he had sent the money.
Yeah.
And then tried to rip when he was going to give it to him. Run. Yeah, tried to run with the camera. And so, yeah, they're going to do whatever they can to try to
it's crazy.
Take a buck from you.
Yeah, it's just something that I don't really, think about too much. Other than say, hey, just make sure you be careful, make sure you look at everything. Like, but obviously you said you have a book.
Yep.
And you said it covers look at me shilling for him. No, I really appreciate the information, you know what I mean? And I think these days, not just if you're like a content creator, YouTube creator, business, whatever, and especially now, even if you are a small business, let's say you don't want to become a content creator, you should still have a YouTube channel. You need to have a social media presence. That's literally probably the only way you're going to be successful in business these days. You need to have social media.
It's all word of mouth and the face that you're putting out there.
Yeah, and it's like advertising, but it's free. And even if you want to like do boosted Instagram stuff or whatever, it's cheap compared to like having to advertise, traditionally through, I don't know, TV or a newspaper, or something like that. But what does your book cover, in terms of like all of these knick-knack issues?
Yeah, so I start out, the first section is the first 3 chapters goes into what is cybersecurity and talks about content around the basics of the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and non-repudiation. That goes into kind of the basics of how you approach securing a system or an environment, and then I start layering it on. The focus of the book is about how to become a cybersecurity architect. So I talk about the progression and the different pathways from a career path perspective to become a cybersecurity architect. But the fundamental areas of risk, how you mitigate risk, security architecture, how you design an environment to layer security. Because I don't know if you remember Shrek, he talked about how ogres are like onions, and it's because they have layers. Cybersecurity is like an ogre because it's like onions, because it has layers. And those layers, again, help filter out and provide mitigating strategies and controls. When one fails, you have something else that is a secondary defense against the bad guys.
Yeah.
So the book goes over that and also covers things inclusive of how to install Linux, how to install an IDS or IPS system using Snort, or how to install and use ClamAV, which is a free antivirus, how to design and set up a firewall, different things that are actively, they're relatively basic in the grand scheme of things, but they're constructive enough for somebody that has no understanding or wants to learn more can do it.
Okay. Yeah, so I appreciate that information, and I have to get going now. It's been, I guess, 45 minutes.
Yeah,
But
it's been about that.
it's almost 5 p.m. Eastern, and I got to take my daughter to MMA class pretty soon. But I appreciate your time, Lester, and the
Yep.
information. Links in the description below for his book. Highly recommended to buy, even though I haven't had a chance to read it yet. But I definitely will look into it now because
Well, your copy is on the way, so
yeah,
you'll be
because
receiving it soon.
I'm the type of person where if I'm not interested in it, it's very tough for me to get into it. But because now something happened to me, like I learned so much more about all this stuff the past 3 days because I got really obsessed with it just to try to figure out how to like make sure I'm clean and all that stuff. Because I felt really dirty. Like someone went into my account and then it's like I felt like I feel so exposed. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's weird, even though it's like
Yeah,
just
you
my
didn't necessarily do anything wrong per se, but
no.
you still feel like
Yeah, it just feels like
yeah.
Um, and I feel like someone's still like I'm all prayer like someone's still watching or something like that. Um, but yeah, I appreciate your time. And again, check out his book. And listen to the safeguards and all that stuff. Keep yourself safe, but most importantly, just don't download random shit. don't get too greedy with shilling that you click on a link to download because they're paying you. Looks like they're paying you good money. So, anyways, hope this video was informative, insightful, entertaining, whatever. And until next time, what is it? Lighten up.
Yeah, lighten up.
Lighten up. All right.